Hey, alright, welcome to another video. If you haven't been here before, I'm Cecilia Jo, and today I thought I would do an end of the year book tag with my little helper here. So I've seen a few people do this now, so I've kind of taken questions from them. I've taken some questions out because I didn't really have answers, and yeah, we'll just go through them, you know? Just discuss some of the books that I've read this year. Okay, so the first question is the most disappointing book of the year. So I think this is quite an easy one for me, and it's going to be Iron Flame, because I just think Fourth Wing was really good. I enjoyed it. There was so much hype around the series, and I just think Iron Flame was like, it was very long and there was a lot going on but not really much happening. I just think it was a massive information dump and too complicated. Like, I feel like by the second book, as a reader, you should already know most of like the characters and the places, and I just feel like it was still world building but not like new places. I don't know, it's hard to explain. I just think there was so much information, too much to remember, too many characters, too many different places. It was just a lot going on but not really much happening at the same time until the last like chapter or two. So yeah, I was just very disappointed with it. Then question number 2, we've got Underdog Book of the Year. So for me, this was The Abandoned Realm. I read it earlier on in the year and I've just not heard anyone speak about it, and I think it was such a cool concept. So it was basically when someone writes a book, if they like kill a character off or they finish writing or something like that, the characters go to this abandoned realm as though they are like real people, and a sort of rift happens between the abandoned realm and the real world, and then the like characters can go to the real world and they end up dying because obviously they're not meant to be there, and it's just kind of all about that. So I think it's such a like unique concept that I've just never seen before. I thought it was really cool. It was, I think the author's called Brittany Hanson, and it was her debut novel. I just really enjoyed it. I think more people should read it. I really loved it. So yeah, definitely my Underdog Book of the Year. And then next up, we've got a book that was overhyped. So I think for this I've got 2. So we've got My Roommate is a Vampire, which I think people hyped it up around Halloween time because it was a vampire, and I just think it was just a bit naff. I also think it was in a time where I wasn't really enjoying reading romances, and it was just, I don't know, just a bit silly, just a bit like meh. I think there's nothing particularly like wrong with it. It wasn't that the writing was bad or anything like that. I just think it was just, it wasn't a book for me. So I think, yeah, I think it was a bit overhyped. And then the second one is A Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and again I think this one, not really much happening. It was just a romance, and I think it was overhyped because it gave like, you know, autumn vibes, that kind of thing, and it was very like a book for autumn or for fall, and that was the only reason really why people were enjoying it, because it was like aesthetically pleasing, you know, it made sense for that time of year. But yeah, I just thought it was a bit meh again. So they're my 2 overhyped books. And then we have got favourite main character. So I have a few for this as well. So we've got Viv from Legends and Lattes, who I just really enjoyed. I think it was really cool to see that she was this like warrior, and then she turned into a cafe owner, and yeah, I really enjoyed that book. So I think it's more the book than the character maybe, but I think she was one of my favourite main characters of the year. And then we have got Conrad the cat from The Cat Who Caught a Killer, who is kind of like a co-main character, I guess, but he's a talking cat, and I just feel like you can't go wrong with a talking cat in a book. So yeah, another one of my favourite main characters. And then lastly, we've got Tarn and Ardana, the dragons from Fourth Wing. I kind of think they are main characters as much as they're not the main characters. I guess this question's more my favourite characters rather than main characters. But yeah, I just really liked their dialogue. I love that they were dragons and that they could sort of speak with humans, so that they weren't just like animals that can't speak, you know. You could understand what they were saying. And I think Andana gets really sassy, and yeah, she gets even sassier in Iron Flame, to be fair. But yeah, I really loved reading their sort of dialogue and their relationship and stuff like that. So yeah, they are my favourite characters, not really main characters I guess, just characters of the year. Okay, next up we've got a book that surprised you. So for this one I'm gonna say The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, because I had this book on my TBR for so long and I just never really fancied it. I never really picked it up, and then one day I was looking for an audiobook to read, to listen to whilst I was working, and ended up listening to this one, and I just really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting to, like I say, I thought it was just going to be like a romance that just I thought was a bit naff, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like a unique romance in the sort of plot. Like, she was someone that could speak to ghosts, and this sort of love interest was a ghost. So if you kind of get past that, the fact that it's a ghost, then it's really good. And yeah, I just really enjoyed it. I wasn't really expecting to, and it also opened up like a new author for me, Ashley Poston, who I have read The 7 Year Slip from since, and she's got a new one out next year that I will read. So yeah, I just really enjoyed the book. I thought it was really good, especially for a romance when I don't always enjoy them. I like this one. So yeah, that was The Dead Romantics. And then that leaves me on to a new favourite author in 2023 that I discovered. So like I say, Ashley Poston is definitely one that I will be buying her new book next year. But also Kaylin Bayron, who is a very late addition to the year. I read You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight very recently, and also Cinderella is Dead, and I loved both of them. I really enjoy how she writes. I enjoy the stories. I don't know what it is, I just really loved reading them. So I've actually asked for 2 of her books. I think it's This Poison Heart and This Wicked Fate, or something like that, I think the other 2 are called, and I've asked for them for Christmas because I just really want to read more of her books. I really enjoyed them. She's got a new one out again next year that I'll definitely be picking up, and yeah, I just really love her books. I think people don't sort of talk about them enough. I just will read anything that I can get my hands on that she wrote. So yeah, definitely one of my new favourite authors that I have discovered this year. Okay, and then we go on to my happiest read. So for this, I kind of interpreted it as like what made me the happiest, I guess, more than like happy things in the book, if that makes sense. And for me, I've chose Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundle, which again is a very recent read, but I just feel like I really enjoyed that book. I think if you watch the video that I filmed where I'm reading it, and it was Waterstone's book of the year, and I think you can see on my face that I just look really happy at the end when I'm talking about it, because I think it was maybe a bit nostalgic for me because of like the sort of Harry Potter and books like that I read when I was younger, and like the Percy Jacksons, and it kind of gives that kind of vibe, and I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was such a good story. I just wanted to carry on and read it. I wanted to sit and do nothing and read it, and I think that's a sign of a good book, or at least one that I'm really enjoying. And yeah, I just, like I say, I think it was maybe a bit of the nostalgia. It was really easy to read. I love the characters. I love like the magical world of Archipelago. And yeah, I wanted to know what was happening. I was so invested in it. I just loved it. I really enjoyed it, and I felt really happy. I felt sad when it had finished, but I felt happy like talking about the book, you know. I feel like it's one of those books that when I talk about, my face lights up, that kind of thing, you know, when you feel really animated and you want to tell everyone about it. I think it was one of those books for me. So yeah, definitely my happiest book of the year. And then on the flip side of that, we've got most frustrating book of the year, and obviously Iron Flame is definitely one. But then we've also got Brothers Hawthorne, which was the 4th book in the sort of, it's not really in the Inheritance Games series. Like, you could just read the 3 Inheritance Games and not really, I would recommend reading the 3 Inheritance Games and not bother with Brothers Hawthorne. I just think it was a very long book, not really much was going on. We very easily could have not had it, you know. And I just think at the end I don't feel like anything's been accomplished. It's like I'm in the same place with the characters as I was at the beginning, so it just feels like a bit of a waste of time, I guess. I'm looking forward to reading the next one. I think it's called The Grandest Game, that comes out next year, and I'll definitely read that. But yeah, I just think Brothers Hawthorne was just a little bit like, I don't know, I just think it was a bit pointless. That sounds really nasty, but yeah, it just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. And then also another frustrating book was Things We Hide from the Light, I think it's called, the second one in the Knockabout series. I've not read the third one yet, but this one, it took me so long to get through, and I just feel like it is too long for a romance book. Like, it just was boring, to be honest. It was boring, but I finished it. I didn't DNF it, but it took me like a while to get through, like frustratingly long to get through. Yeah, it just wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy the like romance. I didn't really root for the two main characters. It's just, yeah, it was just not one for me. Okay, the longest book of the year, I actually can't remember the name of, but it is the fourth book in the Zodiac Academy series. So I read this quite a while ago now. I think it's called Cursed Princess, but let me just have a look. Oh, Shadow Princess, that's what it's called. So it's the fourth book in the Zodiac Academy, and it is 724 pages. So I've actually not finished this series. I read it, I think, quite a bit ago now. I think it was like March time that I read it, and these books are really long. I read it on my Kindle, so I didn't realise how long they actually were until I saw the book in real life. So I didn't necessarily feel like it was that long when I was reading it because it was through Kindle. But yeah, I just think this whole series is a bit long. Each book just, I think, gets bigger and bigger. I didn't end up finishing the series. I think, is there like 8 in total or something? I think I read the first 5. But yeah, definitely the longest book I've read this year, 724 pages. I don't actually own any of the physical copies of the Zodiac Academy. Maybe if I decide to go back and finish it, maybe I will. But yeah, I think it just got a bit tedious, a bit long, and a bit boring, I think. So yeah, I didn't finish the series, but that was definitely the longest book that I read this year. And then again, on the flip side of that, we have got the shortest book, which is a book called Shakespeare's Sword by, I think it's Alan Judd. And this book was not for me. It just wasn't for me. It's not a genre that I enjoy, and I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't for me. There's nothing wrong with the book, it's just not a genre for me. But let me see how many pages was in it. So it's 105 pages, so yeah, very short for a book, more like a novella, I think. But yeah, it wasn't for me. It was just not a book for me. I ended up giving it 1 star because I couldn't even really tell you much that happened in it. I think I ended up like skim reading it because I was just bored. It just wasn't for me, and that's okay. But yeah, that was the shortest book. And then we move on to my favourite book covers of the year. So I have a few of this for this. I also have a few that are on my shelf that I've not read yet, so I won't go through them. Maybe they will be in next year's end of year book tag. But yeah, for ones that I've read this year, we've got You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. I just think this is a really cool artwork on the front of this book. I also really love Cinderella is Dead. I do love the front covers of her books. But yeah, I don't know what it is about this one. I think it's just because you can genuinely see the like fear on the like character's face at the front. I just think it's really enticing. It makes you want to read it. So yeah, definitely You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight. Then we've got Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, which is a cowboy romance, and I just think these books, like there's a new one that's coming out next year. I think it's called Swift and Saddled, I want to say. But the books are just so pretty. I just think they're really, really pretty. I don't actually own the physical book because I read it on Kindle Unlimited, but it's one of those books that because I love the front cover, I want to buy it, you know, just to have it on my shelf. I just think they're really pretty. I don't know what it is about them. I love them. And then also we've got Impossible Creatures, which has got like a dragon on the front. I also had the special edition of it, which has got sprayed edges with dragons on the edges. And yeah, just think it's a really cool book. The back has like the dragon's tail, which leads around the side and then to the front with the whole dragon on the front with like the foil writing. I just think it's beautiful. It's such a pretty book. So yeah, they are my favourite, or some of at least my favourite covers. I also love the Legends and Lattes and the Bookshops and Bone Dust covers. And the artwork that's inside them, I think they're really cool as well. So yeah, they are some of my favourite book covers. And then the last couple of questions, we've got the highest rated book on Goodreads. So not my rating, just like an average rating from people and from everyone else. And that is, the highest rating was Fourth Wing. And I can understand why, like there was so much hype around it. So many people read it as well. And it was just that it was a really good fantasy, and I think it was good for people that maybe like me that don't or haven't read like fantasy, just fantasy books yet. I've only really read romantasy books. I think it was a really good one to start on. It still is kind of a romantasy more than just fantasy, but yeah, I really enjoyed that book, and it's definitely the highest rated on my Goodreads for this year. And so I would agree with that rating, and I'd also agree with the lowest rating one, which is Shakespeare's Sword. I think I would agree in the sense that it is my lowest rated book, but also disagree because I think the rating is like 3 point something and I gave it a 1 star. So I kind of agree and also disagree because I do still think it's rated highly. But I would imagine that's people who, you know, enjoy those kind of books. I think it's just the book wasn't for me. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It just wasn't for me. So yeah, I would agree with both of those ratings, the highest and lowest, from what I rated them as well. Not really a question, but the last like discussion that's on there is about my 2023 reading goal and like my goals for 2024. I'm gonna do a whole video on my 2024 goals because there's quite like a few different parts to it, but I think for my 2023 reading goal I didn't reach it, and I probably won't reach it, but I also set it way too high. So last year I think I read it, I don't know if it was over 200, it might have been 190 something. Let me double check, I'm gonna have a look. 196 books in 2022. So I was like, oh well, I'll set it for 200, but I didn't sort of take into account that last year I spent a lot of time. Reading was the only thing that I did outside of work last year, whereas this year I've like moved in with my boyfriend and I've tried to spend more time with family and like leave the flat more and do more things. So reading wasn't the only thing that I did, you know, and we watched like series together and stuff like that. So yeah, I didn't get anywhere near 200 books. I think I actually at the beginning of the year, I think I set it for 250, which now looking back is just silly. And I could have reached it if I had no social life, because I'm not a fast reader. So 2022 I probably could have read 250 books because I met my boyfriend in September and I didn't really read much between September and December because we were just spending so much time together and I was talking to him and I just didn't have the time or the want to sit and read books. So for those like last 4 months I didn't really read many books. So I think if I hadn't have met him, maybe I would have read more and I probably would have got to 250 in 2022. So I thought that made sense to put that for 2023, but yeah, it was silly. I was never going to reach it. I think, let me see, so I'm on 138 for this year and I even brought my reading goal down to 200 and I'm still 48 books behind schedule. So I was in like October, I was really going to try and like get it and just read loads, and then I was just finding I didn't want to read because I was forcing myself to read books that I wasn't enjoying so that I could just get through them and tick them off, and that's just not sort of the point, is it? So yeah, 200 was very optimistic. I'm nowhere near it, but I've still read 138, which is a lot of books to read in a year. I think next year I'm probably just gonna set my goal for 100 so that I can read, because there's certain like series that I want to read that I know are like chunky books. Like I want to read the Lord of the Rings books, I want to read all the Harry Potters, I want to read the Game of Thrones books, which are big books, There's also like individual ones like A Little Life, which is a big ass book. I want to read Pride of the Orange Tree, which again is a big book. So I want to read more like books that I actually want to read rather than just trying to tick off a reading goal. So yeah, I think probably next year I'll just set it at 100 and just see where we go, you know, because I do think when you like force yourself to read books, that's how you end up in a book slump. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure on all of the goals for next year, but I think I'll probably put it as 100. But for this year, it's not completed, and it won't be completed because I'm not going to read 60 books in the next 3 weeks. So yeah, and that's fine. I feel okay with it. I've made peace with the fact I won't be making that goal. But yeah, so that was my end of year book tag. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and you'd like to subscribe, I would really appreciate that. But yeah, other than that, I will see you in a bit.